How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the next episode. You can see here we've got some inline blowers. This is the two little devices that you activate before you turn your motor on, so you don't essentially cause an implosion underneath your rear side of your boat. So the whole idea behind this, if you're not aware of a inline blower, is naturally these little lines and even your fuel lines, they kind of excrete fumes and oil, maybe because your seals aren't all new. Like this is where your power valve is. So this is a little common one that you'll see leaking, and in and around these little seals they'll leak, and fuel gets all over the place in here, and obviously it's going to create some gases that will accumulate underneath here if you don't have an open air configuration, which no one really does. Then what ends up happening is you go to start, and I tell you, the thing you may or may not know, the best, and I know I'm going off of a tangent here, but one of the things, if you ever want to know if your spark plug wires are having issues, turn your boat on at night and look and see if you see your spark plug wires arcing against something here. Like this is a ground spot. I've seen it before where your spark plugs will arc right there. And that's another reason why if you have fuel leaking in here or fumes, it'll arc, and then that's where you get your boom explosion. So just another little tangent there is, if you want to check your spark plug wires, you can do it physical, right? You're just rubbing your hands down here to see if you see any cracks or whatnot. But the other good check is to also run the sucker at night and take a look all the way down and around and see if you notice any sparks. If you do, guess what? You need to get new spark plug wires. I've also seen it arc on the cap and down to where the bolt goes down, right down in there. So something to consider. That's the whole idea here with this video, is kind of showing you why it's important to have these inline blowers, is to pull out all the fumes underneath the engine area, and hopefully it'll keep you from having an explosion. Some people may just have one. This boat originally, check this thing out, accumulated under all these wires here. This is what's in there originally. I think it works. I believe it did work before, but you know, I'm doing all this work on this boat. I think the least I can do is put a new inline blower in. And as you can imagine, I'm actually going to put two, one on each side. Let's kind of rotate up and see that little hole. That's where we're going to be routing the tubing for this. Now you may notice in this series I'm kind of jumping around. You don't see any carpet here, and that's, I promise there's a method to the madness. I'm trying to get all the electrical done, and we'll talk more about this. Electrical, like I've got these wires, I've got these floating around, and I can explain what they're all for, as they are important towards the rebuild here. And take a look up there. So what we're going to do first here, before I continue with the other episode where we finish wiring up the radio and all that fun stuff, I want to get physically everything mounted to where it needs to be, so then I can start working on putting the engine cover on, which is going to cover this whole area. There's also going to be a bench here too as well, so I want to show you that. Stay tuned to that episode. That's going to be cool. That bench that I built, I don't know what episode it was, probably like in the 60s, episode like 60 something. That was that bench is done. It looks fantastic, so wait till you all get to see that. That is something else. So anyway, here's what your mounting surface looks like. If you already have one, consider maybe putting a second one. It's kind of up to you, but I think, pulling off these gases that get trapped under the hood, as these motors get older and older, you're going to have more fumes, accumulate underneath this motor. So if you're not doing a lot of maintenance on yours, like I do, and you don't really trust your seals on your motor here where your fuel is, and your fuel pump right down there, maybe consider putting another one of these in. Cheap insurance, right? That's what I call it. The other thing you got to consider, these blow one way and they suck the other. There's a little line somewhere on here that shows which direction, but I'll look at that closer here in a minute. But anyway, you got to consider as well placement. I mean, where are you going to put this? Some people who may or may not have just rebuilt their floor may just say, hey, I'm just going to screw it right here. And if you know me, especially with this new Kevlar floor, I'm not a big fan of just simply drilling holes in the floor. I don't like it. I think it eventually over time will allow water to get underneath here, and I'm not a big fan of it. The only places that I've actually drilled holes in, as you saw in my battery episode, where I drill holes in here, but you can see there's marine adhesive in between those bolts. So, and I believe I only did the minimum of 4, whatever I could get away with on it, but this is pretty much it. I had another boat where I did a fuel tank and I put screws in for that. I think a total of 12. But I mean, those are like the bare exceptions, and I don't like drilling in the floor if I can help it. I may consider, I'm going to look at it here, but I'm considering as well using, you know, maybe actually just putting it right here, for example, and then just using marine adhesive, right? Because if you use the marine adhesive, you'll see when we talk about mounting the depth finder in the back, I actually don't screw into the back of the transom anymore. And I'll show you another boat where I've done that, and there's no screws that go into the transom. It's just marine adhesive. Pretty strong stuff. You get the one from Loctite or 3M, you'll be surprised. You just got to keep an eye out on it. If it starts to crack and have issues, then you may need to consider another alternative, such as screwing it in. But in this case, I'm considering it because part of the placement of this is going to be where the tubing can mount up into that location right there. And it's kind of a straight shot. Does it block anything that's necessarily in this area? Maybe not. I mean, maybe what I can do is take the tubing and bend it up and then over, you know, there's that option. I'm considering doing that as well. And then obviously where it gets the exhaust gases, they're pretty heavy, so it's typically going to fall in the bilge area. So I'll probably run the lines down into the bilge area. So that's going to be likely my plan. I mean, we've got some real estate back there where we can mount it, and then right above, if you look at where the steering is, I mean, maybe we can stick it over there. Or if you really want to be brave, you can stick it in this little area here and have absolutely no access to it. But once again, I don't like drilling into anything because it cuts down on the longevity of the wood in there. And, you know, like I said, water eventually will work its way in there. So I think I'll double check. I think what I'm going to end up doing here is I'll probably mount this here. This area, consider it, you know, with the bilge paint, I consider that area likely to be more prone to water and whatnot. And in theory, it could fill up, you know, to here in some situations. So I think I may keep it up here and just mount it right in that location. And the reason, like I said, is I want access down into the bilge area, which I can bend it and go right there, and then the other area goes up there. And on the other side, let's take a look. This area, besides being really dirty, is just all open real estate. I was thinking, you know, maybe about having this area where I could put a cooler. So I'm kind of trying to keep this area as free as possible. But you can see next to the trim tilt pump, I've got some room right over there. I've got some room on this side. I also have some room back there, but keep in mind, if you start putting stuff too far back, what's the point? Because then your tubing's going to have all different types of curves and whatnot. I think likely what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the pump, because what's interesting on this side is you still have, let's see if the exhaust, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we got a vent right there. So it'll probably be the same thing. I'm going to run a line that I'll probably end up running the pump, the blower right here, and then it'll kind of still keep space open around in this area. Okay, so just in case you're curious here, you can see this is the flex tubing. This is 3-inch. I've seen in some cases people have the 4-inch style tubing, but when I bought this, you can see this box is huge. I can't even read what the writing is on it, but there's so much tubing in here, I'll never use it all. So, well, the good thing is I may get to take a good stab at a good ton of it here on this boat, so we'll see. I don't suspect I will, but wishful thinking. So we'll probably end up using, I think, maybe 3 feet once everything's said and done. Let's go ahead and mock it up a little bit. Oh, this is actually 50 feet, you can see here. So let's mock it up and put it in place and see what it's going to look like. Okay, so take a look here. Finished product. It actually kind of just goes in there naturally. I just put about 2 rungs worth into the vent. And I was playing around with maximizing the most amount of real estate. So I could put this in a location where if I also wanted to put a cooler back here, it wouldn't interfere. And then I was also thinking about things like if I need to get to the trim tilt pump, do I have enough space to work on those lines? And you can see here that the answer is yes. I was thinking about, you know, putting this vent the blower a little bit more in the middle, but then I was like, you know, this line is going to be kind of dangling and there's nothing really to tie off to except for that little spot. And I was like, no, I don't want to get anywhere near this trim tilt pump just in case any kind of oil leaks or I need to work on it. So that's kind of why I moved it forward a little bit. And then you can see all I've essentially done is clean the floor up real good with some bleach product and then put a dab of marine grade adhesive on it. It's on both sides. Then you can see where the flow mark is, so it is flowing in the right direction. And then essentially that's it. You can see I've made a little harness here, and you can see underneath I've got my shrink wrap around those connections, and then I've left some extra wire, so when I go to run this, I'll have some extra wire. And then I've also mounted the other section here, and this side kind of differs compared to what I have on the other side, and you'll kind of see why. Instead of running this one completely in the bilge area, I have it pointed at these holes. So if there is a leak underneath the fuel tank area, this has the ability to kind of pull out any of those gases that may be kind of seeping out through here. So that's kind of the whole idea on this side. And then obviously too, it's not like directly pointed at it, so it can suck some other residual area, you know, gases in this area as well. Let's go to the other side. Okay, so you can see here, this one I decided to kind of put it more in the corner. Same concept. We got the 2 little dabs of marine grade adhesive on there, no screws, I'm not a big fan of them. And then I'm actually routing it behind the battery. You see that big clump of cables, we'll talk about that next episode. And then we got it just sitting in the bilge area underneath there. So that's kind of the whole idea here, is to pull the heavier gas fumes from down below and pump it out the side just like that. So I hope you like this video. This is pretty simple. It's the Attwood bilge blowers. Keeps you safe. If you're wondering if you don't have one, definitely go ahead and get yourself one, because if you don't, your boat project may not last very long. So keep that in mind, and you definitely don't want to have yourself injured, especially in a fire. So hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to my channel. If you got some questions, leave them below. Like I said, I'm going to get to more. We got people asking about all kinds of little things. I promise I'll get to it. I'm putting these in the most logical order I can think. But as always, like the video if you thought it was helpful, and we will catch you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.